Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Dirty's Podcast, Episode 5. Okay, we have a lot to talk about. It's going to be primarily about sports this week, just because there's so much to talk about. We have the NHL season coming up. We have Conor McGregor back in the news. We have to talk about our picks from last week. Dirty made you some money, if you bet. And we got some good picks coming up for you this week, so stay tuned. I mean, I don't know how to not laugh at this. You know, there was a time when I was a big fan of Conor McGregor. And it was when he first kind of came in, you know, and he's fighting, you know, really good fights, exciting fights, you know, Diego and Max Holloway and, you know, and these guys, he's fighting some really good fights, and he's climbing, and, you know, and he's making these predictions, and, you know, and he was fulfilling all of these predictions. And then he just went off of the fucking rails. Yeah, that. I mean, ever since the Floyd Mayweather stuff, and even prior to the Floyd Mayweather stuff, you know, good trash talk is a lot of fun to watch, you know, and he was the master at it. But when you talk trash, you have to back it up. It's boring watching some people fight. It's boring watching some people try to get up there and talk. I mean, some of these guys are just so cringeworthy. And so the point is this. Conor McGregor was the king of trash talk until he lost to Nate Diaz in the first fight. Now, I'm not one of these guys that believes that Nate won the second fight. Conor clearly won that fight. The only thing that I didn't like about that fight on behalf of Conor was the last 15 seconds. Had that fight went another 30 seconds, I think Conor might have been in trouble. But it didn't. It ended where it ended. And I think anybody that says Nate Diaz won that fight is just either anti-McGregor or pro-Nate Diaz. But I digress. And I love Nate Diaz. He's one of my favorite fighters. I love the fact that he came back, and I love the fact that he's fighting again. I'm very excited about that, actually. But let's get back to Conor. So let me put my glasses on here, because I want to read this to you guys verbatim. And just forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. I got to stop using that word. And I'm terribly sorry if I offended anybody for that. Matter of fact, I'm going to block that out. So it basically, here's the headline. Conor McGregor's coach identifies preferred opponent for UFC comeback. If Conor McGregor's coach has his way, the Irishman will fight Frankie Edgar in his UFC return. The former two-weight champion has not fought since he got choked out by Khabib Nurmagomedov, you know what I mean, last October. Khabib. He is penciled in for a return either later this year or early 2020 as he bids to reclaim his former glories. McGregor has already identified Edgar as a potential foe And John Kavanaugh agrees. By the way, just so you guys know, I have the utmost respect for John Kavanaugh. First of all, anybody that can put up with Conor and his antics and still remain loyal and want to, I think it's more than just money for John Kavanaugh. I actually think that he loves Conor like a brother. And I think that that's one of the saving graces in Conor's life right now. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I think there's a real comparison here to what's happening to AB. Conor went off the rails. It started really around after the Nate Diaz 2 fight, but really, truth to be told, during that whole tour that they did with him and Floyd, I saw a different person. He wasn't the same person anymore. You could tell he was seriously losing his mind. And what is the one thing that you can point to? Yeah, there can be a lot of little things that help, the little straws that break the camel's back, but the one constant is money. And I think that is a very fair comparison between Conor and AB. They both come from very, very poor beginnings. Conor was on welfare right before he got his first fight in the UFC. And I'm sorry, not in the UFC, in Cage Warriors or wherever that's called, over seas. And at any rate, but he was extremely poor, and all of a sudden now he's just beyond wealthy. He's just absolutely loaded. He's got the proper 12 whiskey and all of this stuff, and then now he's punching old guys in a bar, and just losing his shit. And I think it's very fair to compare him and AB. I think they're very parallel comparisons, but I digress. Just something I was thinking about earlier yesterday. I think him and Frankie Edgar would be a great fight, he told MacLife. MacLife is the source they're referencing. MacLife, if you don't know, it started out as just like a YouTube channel where they would give inside information on Conor, and I think it's actually owned by Conor. But anyway, now it's kind of taken on its own life in a sense, and they have publications and things of that nature. But he goes on to say, I think it was in the works when Conor was kind of going on that featherweight tear. He is an ex-champion and a great fighter. And so it goes on to say, yes, if it were me, I would love to see Frankie Edgar fight this year if possible, and then go on a run in 2020. Edgar was last in action in July when he lost a decision to featherweight champion Max Holloway. He later told TMZ, I've been trying to fight this guy for a really long time. I know he's mentioned my name before, so he knows if it's him throwing out a lot of shit on the wall to see if something sticks. But I'm game. He knows I'm game. I know I'm supposed to go down to bantamweight. Obviously, I would delay that for a McGregor fight. Well, who wouldn't? I mean, you're going to get paid, and everybody wants to get paid. And just for the record, I like Frankie Edgar. I'll fight wherever he wants, we can do it at welterweight if he feels. He's going to be bigger than me no matter where we fight at, so I'm game. And then Paulie Malignaggi, the boxer, if you don't know who Paulie is, Paulie was just basically trash talking the whole time that the whole thing led up to him fighting Floyd. I think, well, I don't think. I mean, it was pretty obvious that Paulie wanted to fight Conor because Paulie knew that it would be a big payday for him, and that's why a lot of people keep Conor McGregor's name in their mouth at the ready and they fire it out there. So, but anyway, he trolled Conor McGregor on Twitter and Instagram and all kinds of stuff. And it was so much trolling, it was getting terribly annoying. It was of no interest. If there were ever any interest generated by Paulie, he went too far with it and destroyed any chance of that. So Conor fired back a few times at him, and then it just got to be annoying because Paulie just couldn't keep his mouth shut. But Paulie Malignaggi can't resist yet another dig at Conor McGregor. I've been kind of trying to watch my weight a little bit now that bantamweight's coming, but I wouldn't mind pouring some pounds on. I'm game any weight, anytime. We can do this guy just he won't leave it alone. But at any rate, so let's talk about Frankie Edgar for a minute here. Frankie Edgar is currently ranked 4th at featherweight. Featherweight is 145. All right. He was talking about going down to bantamweight because he lost to Max Holloway, and nobody's beating Max Holloway right now. Nobody's going to beat Max Holloway right now. I think the only person that would have a shot at beating Max Holloway is Brian Ortega, but that's beside the point. He was talking about going down to bantamweight. Now, Conor, even though he made his bones at featherweight, I don't think he could get to featherweight. I don't think he could get there at this point in his life. He is going to have to fight at lightweight. And there's no way that Frankie Edgar could put on the kind of poundage to fight at welterweight. And I think that was more tongue-in-cheek than anything, but they would have to fight at lightweight. Now, let's look at things here. All right. At lightweight, you have the champion is Khabib, obviously. The number one contender is Tony Ferguson. Then you have Dustin Poirier, and then somehow Conor McGregor is still 3rd. And probably because Justin Gaethje is 4th, and Donald Cerrone, Eli Aquina, Paul Felder, Kevin Lee, Edson Barboza, Anthony Pettis, and so on and so on. So Frankie has to come up to lightweight. I can't see Conor being able to get below 155. So it's a showcase fight. It means nothing. And it's kind of reminiscent of Conor's career. He took something very special and now it means nothing. And it's a shame. It's a shame because here you had a guy that had every fan in the world, and I know there were a few haters here and there, and I know there are a lot of people that are not going to admit it now that Conor's jumped the shark, but the numbers don't lie, okay? The sales of his shirts and his apparel don't lie, all right? He was by far the number one figure in the sport, and he was by far by a gazillion miles first sales in apparel. So for anybody to sit there and say that they weren't a Conor fan because they'd be ashamed to do so, and I get it. I get it. But to say it is just disingenuous. I will admit I was a fan of Conor when he first came in. But Conor is not the same person anymore. Who was the guy he fought in Ireland? Was it Diego Sanchez? I don't know. I don't remember, but it was a phenomenal fight, and it was so exciting to watch. And he was such an exciting performer. It was he was bigger than the sport. And now he's fighting Frankie Edgar? I mean, it hasn't been announced yet. I'm guessing Dana's probably looking at this like, come on, man. Let's look at this. So you got, hang on here. All right. So he's not gonna fight Tony. Doesn't seem to want to fight Dustin Poirier for some reason, probably because of gas tank. Justin Gaethje, I don't know. He's never fought Donald Cerrone. I mean, honestly, I think it would be just as exciting for him to fight Donald Cerrone. Even Donald Cerrone is, 60 years old now? I think it would be just as exciting to watch Donald Cerrone as it would Frankie Edgar. I don't know, man. I don't understand this at all. This makes no sense to me. Other than the fact that, wait a minute, that's not true. It does make perfect sense to me because it's a fight Conor feels he can win, and he can win handily. Okay? Frankie Edgar is coming off of a loss. Frankie Edgar's been around a while. Frankie Edgar's taken a few to the head. For Conor, it probably makes sense. He's probably going to look at this as a tune-up fight because he can't find a tune-up fight anywhere else. Dustin Poirier is not a tune-up fight. Tony Ferguson is not a tune-up fight. Tony Ferguson's a loss. Tony Ferguson's going to sharpen them elbows all over Conor McGregor's face, and he'll never look the same. Justin Gaethje is a battler. He's just a barbarian, and that's how he fights. And I'm not sure how much interest that would generate. That really wouldn't. You just got two brawler. Conor would have to brawl with him. Justin Gaethje is the kind of guy that whether you want to or not, you're going to end up, and we've seen this time and time again with Justin Gaethje, you're going to end up in a brawl. Right? So I think Conor wants to stay away from anybody with a deep, deep, deep gas tank. What about Nate Diaz? Everybody in the world wants Nate Diaz 3. And if again you say you don't want that, you're a liar. Everybody in the world wants Nate Diaz and Conor 3. Everybody wants it. I'd much rather see Nate Diaz Conor 3 than I would Conor and Khabib or Conor and Tony Ferguson. And probably, I don't know about Dustin Poirier. That would actually be a good fight, I think. But I think Poirier beats him. Conor is just not the same person anymore. I don't know what happens to him, but right around that 3/4 mark in the second round, like clockwork, every fight for the past 3 or 4 fights, he just hits a wall. So either he takes you out with that left in round one, or in 18 seconds, Jose Aldo, 13 seconds, whatever it was. Either he does that, or he's in trouble. He sure as hell ain't moving up to welterweight. So what do we got here? I mean, we got Kamaru Usman, the champ. And Tyron Woodley and Conor have been going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Tyron Woodley just said this, I think, a couple weeks ago, but you notice Conor has, ever since they had their little skirmish in behind the scenes there backstage, Conor McGregor has not mentioned Tyron Woodley's name one time, I don't think. Colby Covington, he's another brawler. And Colby Covington, if there were anybody at welterweight that I think Conor could possibly beat, it would be Conor. But at least, let me rephrase that, at least in the top four, or top five, including the champion. I think Leon Edwards beats Conor. I think, I'm almost positive Jorge Masvidal will throw that left leg kick at him, hit him in the neck, and he's out. Tyron Woodley would absolutely annihilate Conor. And Kamaru Usman, he's just ridiculous, man. But Rafael dos Anjos, that's a possibility that Conor, but I don't think anybody wants to see that fight. Even though we all know about the infamous Red Panty Night press conference that Conor had, and it was kind of a bit at Rafael dos Anjos' expense.
And so if you want to move up, I'm here. It's going to be easy money.
That wasn't the question, but ask yourself truthfully. If Dana rang you and said, you don't have to fight Cerrone, you can fight McGregor, even though Cerrone was still fit, would you take it? You're damn right you take it.
Of course, man. Easy
because
money.
I change your bum life.
Easy money, man.
I can make you
Look
rich.
You, man.
I change your bum life. You fight me, it's a celebration.
Of course you can. I will beat you.
When you sign to fight me, it's a celebration. You ring back home. You ring your wife. Baby, we done it. We're rich, baby. Conor McGregor made us rich. Break out the red panties. We're rich, baby. So don't say you would not take that fight, because you would take that fight like everyone else up here would take the fight against me if it was offered, regardless of belts or any of that shit. I'm the money fight in the male shit at all weight divisions, so fuck everybody else up here.
Yeah, Colby Covington, everybody in the world hates him. I don't think he has a fan. One fan. I don't think he has one fan. He's made his bones in the UFC by becoming the most hated man in the UFC. You know? I could see Conor possibly beating him, but as far as welterweight goes, you're talking top five, I think it's his only shot. And then he's got to put on that weight and then carry that weight around, you know, and that's just another reason why he's going to gas out. So either he takes Colby out in the first round and unloads on him and spends his gas tank, or it's over. So we're back to lightweight. I mean, the Frankie Edgar thing doesn't even make any sense. Frankie Edgar's talking about going down to bantamweight. That's 135 pounds. I'm going to post a picture right now of Conor at 145. You see that? He doesn't. He looks like a skeleton. He looks like Skeletor. Come on, man. So here we have a guy that's talking about moving down to 135, fighting a guy that fought Nate Diaz at 170, I believe. 165 or 170, but I want to say it was at welterweight. I'm not 100% on that. So, but, and would he fight Floyd at, was it like 153, something like that? And he had to work to get down there, man. You know, when you're 25, 26, you can take off a lot of weight, you know, and then drain yourself of all of your fluids and everything else, and you know, you could drop yourself 10 pounds. But he's, I don't even know how old he is now, 31, 32, something like that. I don't know, man, but I'm bringing this up because I don't think anybody really cares about this fight, and I hope this is just talk again. And Conor has been known to do a lot of talking. And the only problem that I have with this is the fact that now John Kavanaugh is throwing this out there, and then Frankie Edgar is responding. Once that process starts, it can gain momentum, and I don't know, man. But personally, I'm not interested in it. Would I watch it? Yeah, I'll watch it. Just out of curiosity to see where Conor's at, skill-wise, because he's got such a long way to go. And he's never going to rest easy. He kind of exercised some demons with Nate in the second fight. I don't know that he necessarily wants the third fight, because I think he realized that he fought the perfect fight in the second fight to beat Nate Diaz. I don't know that he could string another perfect fight. Remember, what he did is he chopped his leg. He just kept chopping that leg. And because Nate's a boxer, so he's heavy on that front foot, right? So, believe me, Nate would be back in training. And don't forget, Nick wasn't in his corner because of the can throwing thing and all that stuff at that time. It just, I don't know, man. I'd rather see him fight Dustin Poirier. Tony Ferguson, there's no way Conor beats Tony. Not at this point. Now, if Conor throws himself back into MMA 100%, you know what? Give me 1 minute here, guys. I got to cut this off here. I'll be right back. I think that if Conor throws himself back into MMA and that becomes his entire focal point, and the whole Proper 12 and all of the bullshit, the outside noise, okay? And he were to do that, I think that he could level up. He does have a lot of natural abilities, and he is built for it. He's got a great frame for MMA. He can put weight on and he can take it off. He has a thin frame, but he's got broad shoulders, and he's really good with his hands. Matter of fact, I'd say he's great with his hands. I'm concerned that he broke his left hand. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm concerned that he broke his left hand. Sometimes those things don't heal. I broke my right wrist 30 years ago, and it still fucks with me. But yeah, I mean, he's got all of the tools that it takes. I think he could level up physically. Mentally, I'm not so sure. And the bottom line is, and I'm going to end this part of the podcast with this: not interested in Frankie Edgar. Period. Okay, so let's talk a little bit of hockey right now. I know there aren't going to be a whole lot of people out there that are going to be interested in hockey, but understand, I played hockey for a long time, and I've been a fan forever, since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So it's just something that interests me, and I also know I've actually spoke to a few people from Canada, and they asked me if I was ever going to discuss hockey. So here it is. We're going to talk a little bit of hockey, and then we're going to get into the picks, because I don't want this to be another 2-hour podcast here. So I wanted to talk about a couple of players that I think are going to be, the stock is rising on. Okay. A couple breakout players. How's that? And I think last year, when I say breakout players, I don't mean coming from nowhere. Okay. We all know what Jack is going to do. Okay. Jack Hughes is going to be, he could be a Conor McDavid, very easily within his first couple years. But I'm talking about players that maybe did okay last year, but I think could actually ratchet it up this year. And one of those players is, and we're going to start with goalies, somebody I was really, really impressed with last year, and he was the difference maker on the team. They actually weren't that far out of the playoffs, considering everything that, all of the noise that was going on outside of that team and within the structure of the team, including the front office. I mean, they fired their GM, and I'm talking about the Philadelphia Flyers, and more specifically, Carter Hart. Carter Hart is a very special goalie, and for Philadelphia's sake, I hope he just doesn't become trade bait. I know they're in kind of a rebuild mode right now, while still trying to maintain some continuity, which I'm a fan of. I don't like blowing it up and starting over again, and kind of like with Detroit, I don't like the idea of blowing it up. And I think Stevie Yzerman is doing the right thing here. But and if you don't know, yes, I am a huge Red Wings fan, enormous Red Wings fan. But at any rate, so I don't like the idea of just blowing something up for the sake of blowing it up just because it's bad. That's easy. That's the easy way out. And I hope that Philadelphia does not do that, because I think they have a good core of players. Travis Konechny I think he's a great player. I think that, somebody like him is a prime example of why not to blow it up. Okay. But Carter Hart, hang on one second here. So he was 16, 13, and 1 with a .917 save percentage. Now, if you don't know, basically the barometer is 900, okay? Anything above 900 is acceptable. Anything below 900 is not good. And a .917 on that team, especially the first part of that season, oh my God, they were horrific. Last year, they were a terrible team, especially for the first half of the season. So for him to garner a .917 save percentage is absolutely remarkable. So I think his stock rises big time this year. I really do. I have the NHL Center Ice package, and you can ask my best friend. He'll tell you I watch every game. When I say I watch every game, I watch every single game. Because what I do is I buy it on the app. And on the app, they're all right there. The icons are all there. So usually I'll watch 3 or 4 in one night, and then I'll watch the other 3 or 4 the next day. I'm a nut. I'm an absolute hockey nut. And then Philip Grubauer for Colorado, and I'm not much of a Colorado fan because I am a Red Wings fan. But to be honest with you, that kind of thing, the whole thing died, especially when Detroit left the Western Conference, and now that they're in the Eastern Conference, they have new foes, and the Colorado thing has definitely lost its luster. So, but I did watch them a lot, and they were a lot of fun to watch. They were a fun team to watch. Tremendous talent. Obviously, they couldn't keep everybody there, which would have been impossible. So, at any rate, but Philip Grubauer, he was a huge difference maker. Colorado was top heavy, meaning their first line was lights out. They're going to put up 3 or 4 goals every game. And then the second line down was a serious drop-off. Now they added Nazem Kadri. I think that's going to help them. My guess is they're going to put him on the second line. I don't know that yet, but I think it would be the smart thing to do to kind of help solidify at least having 2 lines and not being so top-heavy. And I'd like to see them bring in somebody that can lay the lumber down a little bit on the fourth line. You want that checking line to be a checking line, Las Vegas has Reeves, and you want somebody that can go out there and catch the tail end of that first line player, and lay the lumber on him, remind him that he's not alone on the ice. So, and then forwards, I just picked out a couple forwards here to talk about. And one of them is, and it's not, I'm not saying this because I'm a Red Wings fan. I firmly believe what I'm saying right now. And I think it's very objective. I think a breakout player this year is going to be Anthony Mantha from the Detroit Red Wings. Especially if Jeff Blashill, the head coach Jeff Blashill, especially if he keeps Anthony Mantha on that line with Dylan Larkin and Tyler Bertuzzi, that's a great combination. And Anthony Mantha has all of everything that you want out of a hockey player as far as a physical specimen. He has a very high hockey IQ. Anthony Mantha's only problem has been, and this is a problem with a lot of guys in the league, is they take games off. I don't mean they take shifts off. A lot of players take shifts off. Now, Dylan Larkin never takes a shift off, okay? When Dylan Larkin's on the ice, I've always said this, and if you want to know about hockey and the difference between a really good hockey player and a great hockey player is, I'm notorious for telling people this, especially my best friend. He knows I say this all the time, is watch them without the puck. When you watch a player without the puck, watch what he's doing. If he's sitting on the boards waiting for a pass, Johnny Hockey. Johnny Gaudreau was the most overrated hockey player in the NHL last year, bar none. I can tell you, if you go back and you watch highlights of Johnny Gaudreau, you watch highlights of Calgary Flames, Johnny Gaudreau sat on those left boards the entire time until he got the puck. Well, if you've got, gas in your tank for an entire shift, that tells me you left too much on the ice. And so he would sit there on the boards. I'm telling you, go back. You don't believe me? Go back and watch highlights. Look where Johnny Gaudreau is. He parked on the left board every fucking time, unless he had the puck. And that's why you saw his numbers dip, because the puck stopped hitting the back of the net. The puck stops hitting the back of the net because what's happening? Your teammates are going, I'm out here busting my ass, and you ain't doing shit. Okay? Now, I understand he's a little guy. I understand. I get all of that. You know, you don't want him out there banging around either. He doesn't necessarily have to park in front of the net. But he was literally hugging the boards the entire time he was out there, unless he had the puck. But I digress. I got off track there, and I got to stop doing that. That's why they go 2 hours long, Dirty. So Anthony Mantha, keep your eye on him. I think he could have a breakout season. I want to say he's in a contract year or two. And if that's the case, definitely breakout season. Oh, one other guy that I want to mention, Andrei Svechnikov. Him and Elias Pettersson for Vancouver. Pettersson tailed off toward the end. He needs to put about 10 pounds on, and I think he's going to be a much better player. But Elias Pettersson, I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that fades away. I think he will continue to grow and get better. But primarily, I want to talk about Andrei Svechnikov. And the reason being is because, let's face it, Carolina does not have a lot of firepower, all right? So they're a very defensive-minded team, and they rely very heavily on their defensemen. And I know they got rid of Justin Falk, which, to be honest with you, I think was a great move on their part. Justin Falk had brilliant moments in the season last year, but then there's sometimes when you're watching him without the puck, and he looks like there's something missing in him sometimes, like he smoked a joint or something. I don't know, but there's sometimes where I'm like, you're in the NHL? What are you doing here? He boggles my mind sometimes. So I was kind of glad to see him get pushed out of there. Well, he signed a big contract, and good for him. I think it was 4 years, $74 million or some stupid number. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off on that, but it was a lot of money, in my opinion, for him. But they traded him for Joel Edmondson, who's a pretty good defenseman. Somewhere between good and really good, somewhere in that area. But what I like about him is he's defensive minded. Justin Falk was really good at jumping in on the play, and you need those kind of defensemen, but you don't want a team full of them. You want a stay-at-home defenseman, and Joel Edmondson will jump in the play too, but he also knows when. He doesn't have those moments, like Justin Falk does, in my opinion. And believe me when I tell you guys, I watched all of the games, and he was one that stuck out to me because he scored a fair amount of goals, and he's a pretty good offensive defenseman. But any rate, so those are some players that I think that you should keep an eye on. And let me give you an honorable mention too, and I'll explain why. Is Nico Hischier for New Jersey Devils? Nico is he had a breakout season last year, but I think he could actually elevate this year with one caveat, and that is I think that if they get this deal done with Taylor Hall, Taylor Hall obviously coming off of a pretty serious injury, and hopefully he'll come back the same player he was. But that changes the whole dynamic of that team. That takes that team to a new level. I mean, let's face it. He was the best player when he was in Edmonton. He was the best player on the team, clearly. And they made the right move to get rid of him and make way for Conor McDavid. But Taylor Hall he's a motherfucker. So if you got Taylor Hall on the ice, he's going to command a lot of attention. That's going to take a lot of attention away from Nico Hischier. So Nico Hischier could actually have a real, true breakout season this year. Even though last year was a really good one, I think that's the one that could take him to the next level. And real quickly, I'm trying to move as quickly as I can here. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that NHL surprise teams of the season, breakout seasons. Due to what I just said a little bit ago, I think New Jersey Devils could have a breakout season this year. Philadelphia Flyers could potentially have a breakout season this year, but I'm less high on them than I am New Jersey Devils. And I'm even less high on Detroit Red Wings, but because of just the overall change in culture and having Stevie back home where he belongs, and I would not be surprised if somewhere during the season he doesn't make a move or two, because he hasn't really made any moves this offseason, a couple minor ones, but nothing major, which is good. There's some good core players. The unfortunate part for Detroit is they got too much money tied up in dead weight. I love Justin Abelkader, but he's dead weight. He's making way too much money for what he produces. Darren Helm is on the backside of his career, and his forte was always his speed. Well, with age comes a loss in step, and so there's some dead weight there. Their biggest Achilles heel, in my opinion, is Dan DeKeyser. Dan DeKeyser he's Jonathan Ericsson 2.0. The difference being is that Dan DeKeyser makes what, $6.5 million a year with one of these Ken Holland contracts. By the way, good luck, Edmonton. All you do is knock on the door. Can I speak to you, Mr. Ken Holland? I'd like a no trade clause on my contract. Thank you very much. Done deal. I don't know about that guy. I cannot imagine for the life of me. I could not wait till he was gone from Detroit. And the fact that good luck, Edmonton. Seriously. But at any rate, Dan DeKeyser, if they could somehow find a way, even if they had to eat some of his salary, if they could find a way to move on from him, I would be so happy. Jonathan Ericsson, we know what we're getting, which is a bunch of nothing. But he's not making a ton of money either. So, that's easy to cut bait. It's hard to cut bait with $6.5 million. In this culture, or I should say in this climate of salary cap that we're in right now. So anyway, be right back with college football and NFL picks. Look out, Dirty's coming. My first pick is Auburn getting 2.5 at Texas A&M. I am taking Texas A&M. Second pick is Florida over Tennessee. Florida is giving up 14 points. I was back and forth on this one. So my lock pick this week is going to be Oregon giving up 7.5 over Stanford in Stanford. Anyway, Detroit getting 6.5 at Philly, taking Detroit. So my second pick is going to be Carolina giving up 1.5 at Arizona, taking Arizona. And my lock pick this week, shocker, it seems almost too easy, which kind of scares me because I've said that before and I've lost. Rams at Cleveland. Rams only giving up 3 points. So, not too shabby, Abby. All right, so this week here, before I get into the picks, and before I make some people money out there, I want to make note of something here, some interesting stats. First of all, the Buffalo Bills. I picked up Josh Allen in my fantasy. He was on the waiver wire, and I said, fuck it, I'll take him. And just as a backup to Mahomie, which I have. So I think it's worth noting that their wins this year have been against the Jets, the Giants with Eli, and the Cincinnati Bengals, which they eked out. Okay, so let's pump the brakes here. I know they're 3-0. Okay, I hope that they prove me wrong because I would love nothing more than to see New England have some sort of resistance in that division. I think it would change the whole dynamic of the NFL if New England had just one team that could push back on them. I don't see it happening. And I think this is worth noting too. Since 2001, now I want you to listen to this very, very carefully. I'm including Buffalo Bill quarterbacks. Okay? This isn't a stat of visiting quarterbacks. Since 2001, the quarterback with the most wins in Buffalo, okay, the Buffalo Mafia, has been Tom Brady with 15 wins. Let that sink in a second. All right, come on, man. In Buffalo, including Buffalo quarterbacks, Tyrod Taylor, etc., since 2001, the quarterback with the most wins in Buffalo in the NFL is Tom Brady with 15 wins. Okay. With that said, I'm not picking that game. And I'll tell you why I'm not picking that game. New England is hurting really bad on the offensive side of things. Wes Welker. I'm sorry, I didn't realize this is 2007. Julian Edelman. He's got some sort of rib injury, and I don't know if it's cartilage or something like that. I think he's going to probably play this weekend. Now, keep in mind, it's Wednesday right now. I know this won't be up until Thursday, so that could get updated. And by the way, just so you guys know, when I'm using the points for and against as far as the odds and my picks, those are as of Wednesday. They can always change. They always do change. So if you ever question my odds, it's just that's the reason why. I pull these right off of the internet. I go right to Las Vegas, and these are the odds available to me on Wednesdays. Okay, it is now Wednesday. By the way, also before I get into this, you guys know I'm a big Steelers fan. Okay, I've said that ad nauseum. In a quarterback-heavy, extremely quarterback-heavy draft, they trade away their number one pick, which could potentially be, the way things are going, could potentially be a top 7 or 8 pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And I know Minkah Fitzpatrick is a great safety. I know they need help on defense. But the fact of the matter is that they need a running back and they need a quarterback. Now, what that trade tells me is that Pittsburgh sees Mason Rudolph, and I have the utmost respect for Ken Colbert and the Rooney family as far as wide receivers go. I think that as far as wide receivers go, Pittsburgh is by far the best team at picking wide receivers. I don't know how you argue that, okay? Especially over the past 20 years. Quarterbacks, they haven't had to deal with because Ben has been very tough, all right? You've never seen him go out too much. Mike Vick had to come in here and there, and Bruce Gradkowski came in a couple of times, but for the most part, Ben has been Ben. Ben has been Ben. I don't know. I know that they've seen Mason Rudolph in practice every day for the past couple of years, and trading away that number one pick tells me that they believe that Mason Rudolph is their future. Now, I will say that let's not forget Mason Rudolph was in the Heisman hunt, okay, for a period of time. So I'm not saying that he is not the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm not saying that he is the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when you've got a quarterback-heavy draft like this and you trade away a potential, most likely a top 10 pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick, a safety, when you need a running back and you need a quarterback to replace Ben, I'm absolutely mind-boggled. Today, they traded away, and I don't even know the fucking guy's name. Van something or something, I don't know. They traded away a 5th-round draft pick to Seattle. This year's 5th-round draft pick to Seattle. So there goes any chance of bundling their draft picks to move up anywhere for a tight end. And I know that Vance has been banged up. They let Jesse James go. He's in Detroit now. I don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh, man. I don't understand the philosophy, and it's so anti-Pittsburgh. Everything that they have done in the past month has been the antithesis of everything that Pittsburgh has ever done in the past. Short of trading on draft day for Jerome Bettis, they've never done anything like what they've been doing for the past month. And I can't I can't wrap my head around it. That's not what won you Super Bowls. I'm going to leave it alone. Let's get into the picks here. Dirty's getting a little fired up right now. So, this one is tough. This one is really, really tough. This is going to probably be the toughest week that I've picked so far. And I just want to go on record because we've got some potential upsets, which is why I'm avoiding the Bills-Pats game. But I am going to take Miami covering the 16.5 points against the Chargers. Now, here's the problem with this pick. There has been some rumblings of Melvin Gordon coming back. It is now Wednesday. By Thursday, that could change and fuck up my picks. I think he's a difference maker. But their problems are really primarily defensive anyway. I think 16.5 points is a lot of points against the Chargers right now. The Chargers are just not impressive. They are not a playoff team. As of now, they are not a playoff team. So we're going to go with Dolphins plus 16.5. All right. Next up is Cincinnati Bengals. And, I have not picked a Steelers game this year, but I have a reason why I'm picking it. This has nothing to do with my heart, okay? I am picking the Steelers to cover 3.5 points against the Bengals. And let me explain why. First of all, the Bengals look so bad. The Steelers look bad. They are bad. And they have no running game. The Bengals have somewhat of a running game. Mixon's a pretty good running back. I wouldn't mind seeing a swap for Connor with Mixon. But I digress. Here's the thing. The Steelers have not phoned it in whatsoever yet this year. All right? And this is why I say this has nothing to do with my heart. This has to do with the locker room. And the locker room in Cincinnati is probably nothing short of defeatist. All right. Although they did. Sorry about that. My dogs were saying hello to everybody. Although Cincinnati did play fairly well against Buffalo last week in Buffalo, they lost the game. And now they're 0-3. And there's a big difference between being 0-2 and 0-3. 0-2, you still kind of have hopes. When you go down 0-3 and you have Baltimore in your division playing like they're playing right now, that changes the dynamic in the locker room. Now they have to go on the road in Heinz Field, where Pittsburgh plays very, very tough. Not to mention, Steelers defense actually looked really good last week in San Francisco against a very dynamic Kyle Shanahan team, okay? And Kyle Shanahan does a lot of misdirection and things like that. Pittsburgh handled it very, very well. And 5 turnovers? Come on, man. 5 turnovers is no joke. Minka Fitzpatrick made his mark. Boom. He had a forced fumble. He had an interception. I have no problem picking this game. I think the Steelers cover the 3.5 points. They wouldn't cover 7, I don't believe. But I think they cover the 3.5. I think they win by 4, actually. So, and then next up we have Kansas City at Detroit, and this can be a trap game. They just came off of a very, very emotional win because there was a lot of talk. It was basically the game of the week last week, right? a lot of emotion, and they pull it out, and it wasn't really as close as the score indicated. There was some junk yardage at the end there and things like that to kind of pad things up. But Patrick Mahomes came through, and he always seems to come through. I'm going to continue riding his coattails until he lets me down. So although I could see a potential upset here, I am going to take the Chiefs with losing 5.5 points. So those are my NFL picks. So picks, here we go. And by the way, I forgot to tell you my lock pick for the NFL. So let's just get that out of the way. The lock pick that I have is, this might surprise you, my lock pick is Miami to cover the 16.5 points in Miami against the Chargers. Okay, so first pickup is Penn State giving up 7 at Maryland. Maryland has been playing pretty tough football this year at times, and at times not. So the inconsistencies plus Penn State is playing pretty well. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Penn State cover the 7 points. I don't know that they're going to cover more than 10. I think 7 points is the perfect spot. But I'm gonna go ahead and take Penn State losing 7 points. Ohio State at Nebraska. Boy, you want to talk about a sack. All right. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay. Well, Ohio State they're giving up 16.5 points. And so I know what you're thinking. Well, they should be giving up 16.5 points. They're 5th in the country, blah, 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 blah. But this could be a trap game for Ohio State, and I just want to go on record for saying that. I am taking Nebraska with the 16.5 points. I think Ohio State beats them by 10 or 12. I don't think Ohio State's going to. I just think something inside me, my gut is just telling me Ohio State is not going to cover the spread this week. Lock pick, and here we go. Dirty's pulling up his sack again. You ready for this one? Number 21, USC at number 17, Washington. Washington giving up 10 points. I am taking USC and the 10 points. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, that's not, big balls or anything like that. But I want to go on record, and I'm not saying this as my bet. I'm taking the points. Let's not get it twisted here, but I would not be surprised if USC doesn't go in and upset Washington. Those are my picks. Be right back. Okay, so we were trying to play a game here, and apparently it's just not translating. So we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to Would You Rather. What I was doing was I was trying to get you guys to be able to get in a request for the reaction channel by posing a question, would you rather, and I would pick my favorite question. And we didn't get any responses to that. So we're going to say goodbye to that for now. And I may come up with a different idea to kind of interact with you guys a little bit more. And that's basically what the premise of this is a way for some of the YouTubers to be able to get a request in. If you can't afford to be on Patreon, I get this thing all the time. People want, if I do a video, I get 150 requests, but nobody makes it over to the podcast and asks a simple question. Would you rather? It's very simple to do. And I would have picked the winner, and that person would have got the request in. But for whatever reason, you didn't want to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and X out that going forward, at least for now, unless something changes. Maybe we'll do it a different way, but that for right now, that's going to be the end of the podcast. Hope you guys have a great week. I tried not to go quite as long this week. It still went a little bit longer than I anticipated, but we had to introduce hockey into there. By the way, we are going to be doing some hockey picks this year too, so we're going to make you some money on that too. All right, you guys love each other, please. Everybody love everybody. Key it up.
Because we only have one rule on this team. What is that rule, Twiggy?
ELE.
That's right, ELE. What does ELE stand for?
Everybody love everybody.
Everybody love everybody. Right there up on the wall.
That's right. Everybody love everybody. Just think about this. Black, white, yellow, brown, man, woman, gay, straight. We're all human beings on this tiny, insignificant little sphere in the universe. It's a very, very large place. And within this tiny little sphere, we have so much hate. When we should all be in this together. This world keeps spinning with or without us. And some of us aren't going to be here very much longer. Some of us got another 60, 70 years ahead of us. And everything in between. But the fact of the matter is that we have an opportunity to change everything. Don't forget the butterfly effect. That little butterfly flapping its wings, making mountains disappear. It's up to us. Dirty out.